welcome everyone to the Detachment 538 podcast. Today we have a special guest, Lieutenant Andres. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
All right, so before we get started, mind telling the audience and the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. So I'm Second Lieutenant Kate Andrus. I did Detachment 538 alumni, graduated in 2020. I also went to Roberts Wesleyan College and got a degree in criminal justice. So I was a cross-town student, and I participated in ROTC all 4 years. So I went through all the GMC phases and did my time at field training, just like I'm sure all of you are. And now I'm here at my first duty station in Goodfellow Air Force Base here in San Angelo, Texas, as a security forces officer.
That's some good stuff. So we're going to leave you in the hands of Cadet Thompson, who has some questions for you today.
Absolutely.
All right. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you, Lieutenant Andrus. It's I think I'm going to get some good stuff talked about today. So
absolutely, thank you for having me.
To start off, all of us here back at Det 538, we've kind of known that you've been, looking for security forces for a while now. So we were wondering, what is it that has attracted you towards this career field, and and what you like about it currently, and what you thought about it before.
So what attracted me to security forces, we'll say two things, right? There's like the flashy stuff, and then there's like, the real meat and potatoes reason. First of all, like, who doesn't like lights and sirens? And driving with the lights and sirens on is awesome. And then we get to have all the Gucci gear as well, right? So like, I'm sure all of you know that I loved all the Gucci stuff, and I'm looking at my plate carrier right over there, right? Because we get to wear our cool gear every day. We get to, go out there and have awesome equipment. We have a lot of awesome stuff we use. But the real reason that I wanted to go into this career field was a while back, I discerned my purpose for myself. And that's something that I think everyone along the way kind of figures out as they're going through life. And I discerned that my purpose is to serve. And so being that I want to help people and serve people, the best way to do that is to be in security forces, because we are cops. And usually when the cops are called, it's not someone's best day. So I have the biggest ability to impact somebody for the better if I'm there when, they most need the help.
That sounds good. From going, looking forward to security forces and applying, getting accepted, to being in security forces, is there a part of this job that you like most about, or something that you were, surprised about in terms of actually going in and performing?
Part that I like the most so far, I haven't done too much. I'm only 8 months into this gig, but we'll see how it goes. The part that I like the most is the people. Both in tech school and here, I've been very fortunate to have a really high caliber of people that I've been able to interact with and learn from. And I think that's the most enjoyable aspect for me personally, because not just as a security forces member, but as an officer, my job is people. It's to support my airmen, support my wingmen, support, everyone that I work for in my squadron, but then also as a bigger, picture of the base populace. And so being able to do that and help people is an amazing feeling. And then anything that I wasn't quite sure about going into it. I mean, obviously, like, you can only do so much research, right? And I'd watched dozens of videos on the internet, and, everyone's like vlogs of people out there just doing, security forces. And it gave me a good picture, but I didn't really understand it until I, rucked a mile in my boots, I should say. You really can't understand it until you experience it for yourself. But for the most part, I think it was pretty much on par with what I was looking for out of the career field.
You mentioned the Gucci gear, and recently the Air Force released the authorization for the new baseball hats. Have you got to wear these new hats, and has morale increased from these hats, do you think?
So that's one of the fun things about active duty, is that sometimes big Air Force will put out guidance, and then different squadron commanders and base commanders will take it and run, but they may not have all the right and left limits with that, right? So it came out that we could wear the baseball caps when I was in tech school, and a lot of security forces squadrons started implementing that immediately, but then guidance came out saying no. So we are currently still wearing the berets, but that's okay, because I just got this and I'm really not like ready to put it on a shelf and leave it for when I wear my blues, because I never do that. But I know that some squadrons, depending on the mission, allow different headgear. We don't have the headgear authorized here besides our berets, and then if we're wearing our helmets, of course. But it's one of those things that's constantly evolving, and I know that different people are looking at different alternatives for that as well, like a happy medium, like when can you wear it, when is it okay to wear it, when should you wear it, etc. So I'll just keep waiting for that, but I'm personally am content with the beret at the moment.
Yeah, that's good to hear. With entering in from tech school to you said that you've been on your duty station for about 8 months now. That's correct.
Give or let's see, yeah, give or take. Yeah, I've been here
Give or take.
since January, so almost a full year coming up pretty soon.
Have there been any type of major surprises that you've gone from in those 8 months? Have you gone, wow, this was something that I didn't expect to happen, or something that was part of your job that was new to you as you entered into active duty compared to, say, training or just applying?
Absolutely. And I think this is something that you see in civilian side law enforcement as well. And one of the things that I wasn't, I hadn't experienced for myself yet and hadn't heard about, probably because it's one of the less glamorous parts of the career field, if you will, is the high capacity for external stressors to enter your day, if you will. So let's paint a little picture, right? A1C Snuffy is at the gate scanning IDs, and they've been there for 7.5 hours, and they're waiting for their relief to come, and their relief might be late or whatever, but they're waiting for their relief to come, and they've been in this really small, like 8x8 gate shack for 8 hours, and they have to stay there the entire 8 hours because they're the installation engine controller, and it's a very important job. And let's say there was leadership, somebody in their car that was a colonel or something came by the gate and wanted to stop and check in on the defenders at the gate, and they stay there for a few minutes. The cars behind might not know who's in the car in front, and so when they roll up, they decide that they want to express their frustration to the defender at the gate, where the defender was just doing what they're supposed to do, right? If leadership comes to the gate, you've got to stand tall and look pretty, right? So sometimes there are miscommunications, or there's things that go on that lead to people expressing their frustrations in a way that they don't understand the full picture, right? And no one ever really does. But a lot of times we are the sounding board for people's complaints, gripes, whatever it happens to be. So it just happens to be that that's a lot of external stuff that comes in from people that might necessarily they may not like us, they may love us, they may not, but sometimes they just have an opinion to share. And a lot of times you find that people often will tell you their opinion just because you are security forces or you are a police officer. So it's just one of those things that you understand more so as you go through it. And it's not a bad thing at all, right? It doesn't happen every single day, and it doesn't happen all the time, and it's not like a thing that you just like constantly dread. But it was definitely something that I didn't understand, and even I still don't quite get the full picture of it now, because I'm not out there doing the gate all 8 hours, right? I come by for like an hour and a half at a time because I'm doing my post rotations, and I've seen some of those instances myself firsthand, so I understand a little bit, but not to the point of understanding completely like my airmen do. So
Can you just jump back a bit into what you were saying there, and can you describe for anyone who might not know how exactly that installation engine control point works, and kind of what what the typical job would be as a security forces?
So there are quite a few posts that you could fill. There's installation engine controller, which is a gate guard, the first person you're going to see every day and the last person you're going to see every day. And then there's patrolman, and then there's flight sergeant, flight chief, flight commander, and K9, and then a whole host of back office jobs that I could probably remember and rattle off if I had the time, but that's not as important. The support functions, if you will. So gate guard, installation engine controller, they're the ones that are using the defense biometric identification system, or DBIDS scanners, to authenticate your credentials when you come in. So you need to have a method to get on base, whether it's a DBIDS card, a common access card, other form of government credential that has allowed or that allows you to get on post. And so the job they're doing is they're scanning, making sure that the credentials are valid, as well as if the individual has the appropriate registration on their vehicles, if they have any warrants for their arrest, because that has happened. If they're abiding by the installation rules, like you cannot bring any firearms on because September 1st, Texas became a constitutional carry state. So now we have that, as a different aspect, right? People may not be aware of the laws, or they may not know that coming onto a federal installation is, you can't necessarily bring a firearm just whenever you want. It's different jurisdictions. So that's what they're doing there. And they're up there not only protecting and controlling the inflow of traffic, but they're also making sure that they're watching, outside the post as well, just for anything suspicious, making sure that the motorists are safe, because they are the eyes at the very, front of the base. They're the eyes and ears of our command, really.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
So a lot of us, back here who are looking in towards maybe security forces, a lot of us have, some wonderings about what that day looks like, and that would be important to making decisions and towards of what you're looking to do. So can you share with us what your typical day as a new second lieutenant entering into this career field would look like, and maybe a bit about what some of the other officers who may be in there for a bit longer, what that looks like as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with my day, and I will give you a basic rundown. There are 3 shifts that we work here at Goodfellow. There's day shift, swing shift, and mid shift. Days is from 06 to 1400. Swings is from 1400 to 2200. And then mids is 22 to 06. So we have all 8 hours covered. If I'm working a day shift, which I did this past week, I will wake up at 03:45 after going to bed at 8 o'clock the previous night. So I do go to bed early. I go to bed at 8 and then wake up at 3:45. So I can be out the door at the latest by 4:45, and then be on base no later than 5. But I like to be there a little bit earlier, like around quarter of. That way I'm the first person there of that shift, because mids will still be there. Mid shift is still working. But if I'm not working that shift, I'm not going to show up for their, like in the middle of their shift. So I'll show up at 5, and then I'll usually check my email, make sure I have nothing pressing, like no taskers from my boss or things like that. Some back office things that I have to take care of, or whatever. And then we arm up. So you have to carry your weapons on duty, and the armory is where you go and retrieve said weapons. So you bring your duty gear with you. You have a little bag with your wet weather gear and your helmet and all that fun jazz, your patrolman's binder, and then you wear your plate carrier. And some people like to wear a tactical belt, myself as well. So you can add a couple features if you want to, but you go to the armory, and then you arm up with your weaponry for that day. And then that's around 5:15 to 5:30. And then 5:30 to 5:45, we have what's called guard mount, which is where the flight chief or the flight commander, like myself, will ensure that the airmen are 1, present for duty, 2, have all the required gear for duty, and 3, pass along any information like what happened on the previous shift, anything coming from ops, the command section, like, hey, we've got to make sure that we have all of our CBTs done for this cycle, or things like that. So just some admin stuff here and there sprinkled in. And then we will officially take post at 06, and then there's patrols that go out and do things. There's a desk sergeant, which is the brain stem of the operation, controlling things and dispatching people. And then there's the flight chief that's out there as well, and then the gate guards, obviously. So they'll all take their posts. The previous shift will come back, and then from 06 to 1400, there are things we have to do, but there is no necessarily structured thing that happens during the day, because again, we are on call. So we wait for calls to come in. Hope they don't, because we don't want to have to, we don't want to have somebody be hurt or have an issue, right? A good day is a quiet day, right? And that's kind of like a superstitious word. You shouldn't say, let's have a quiet day at guard mount, because then something happens, right? As it always does. But if something happens, we'll respond to it. Could be a medical emergency, could be somebody irate at the post office, could be somebody at the BX that's shoplifting, could be a whole number of things. Could be a individual who's running around at the front gate, with their pants on their head, that which has happened. So stuff like that happens, occasionally, right? But we're on call waiting for stuff to happen. And then we have other things we have to do, like, check buildings, make sure they're secure, because we have, facilities that need to be checked every once in a while. And then once those are taken care of, and if nothing happens during the day, we just, hang out, wait around until our 1400 changeover. And that at 1400, once the oncoming shift has taken over, we'll then go to the guard mount room and the armory, maybe do a quick little meeting if we need to, but usually you don't have to. De-arm, all of the weapons go back in the armory, make sure you have all the, arms and ammunition accounted for, and then you can go home. So it's usually about a 10-hour day, depending. My day usually is a little bit longer because I stay till 16:30, which is the end of the workday, and then check emails, do stuff like that, and so on and so forth. And that'll be the same kind of routine if I want to go to a mid shift or a swing shift. It'll just be different times. So if it's like a swing shift, I'll come in for the morning, maybe like 8 or 9 o'clock, work something in there with the back office, and then arm up at 2, work till 10, get off, go home, etc. That's what a lieutenant does. My boss, the captain, the operations officer, he's most of the time in the back office doing lots of things. I honestly don't know 100% of what he does because I know a lot of what I do is not where he is. I don't get to see a lot of it, but I know that he's juggling taskers from the wing and the group that are pushed down through our commander, and he's also juggling stuff that's coming from our flight. Maybe let's say somebody got sick, and a current thing going on is COVID, right? So somebody tests positive for COVID, he's trying to help put that fire out, manage the contact tracing, make sure that the people that are coming on to that same shift aren't sick, because the manning is an important thing, right? You have to have a certain amount of people, et cetera, et cetera. So he's dealing with both ends of the sword there. And I know it's a lot of work, and he's usually pretty busy, from 7:30 to 16:30. And he's a lot of, back office organizing, talking to people. But it's not all on his plate, right? He's got an operations superintendent, which is a senior enlisted member. It's a senior master sergeant. So he's the guy that like the go-to guy. And then there's flight chiefs that you can talk to as well. And we have several, very well experienced and well-read flight chiefs that kind of know the answers to the questions. And that's kind of what happens in security forces, right? Is like, or in the Air Force as a whole, right? The officers will make the decision, but it would behoove them to go to the senior enlisted and be like, hey, chief, hey, senior, hey, master sergeant, what do we, what's the ins and outs of this, right? Like, what do we do? What's a good idea? How do we go about this? Because they may have an answer that the officer didn't think of. So that's one of the things that the captain does a lot. He'll pick the brains of the senior enlisted members and make sure that he's making the most informed decision possible. And then our commander is even more so of that. He's a major, and he's just doing a lot of coordinating with the wing and the group and stuff like that, making sure that we are all good to go, and that he's helping enable the mission for the wing and the squadron, or the wing and the group.
All right. So we talked a little bit about what you do at active duty as you enter in, but taking a step back in time, what was the training pipeline like to get to where you were? Can you talk a little bit about the types of things that you did at each stage of this pipeline, as you went to get from a fresh lieutenant coming out of ROTC or the academy to get to a active duty second lieutenant entering into their career field?
Gotcha. So the senior year as a cadet, you'll have a lot of briefings and a lot of discussions with the aerospace classes regarding your entrance to active duty. And there's going to be a lot of things that talk about, like how you PCS and how you move your things. Do you do a Diddy move, U-Haul? Do you do a movers? Do you, all those things. And I highly recommend looking into those things, not just after you, finish the aerospace class and finish that specific lesson, but looking at it as your date of entrance of active duty approaches, because you're going to have to figure those things out. Not only that, but then you're going to have, the decision between, so depending on your career field, right? You might go TDY somewhere and then go to your first duty station, or you might go to your first duty station and then TDY somewhere else and then come back, which is what I did. So you've got to decide, do I keep my apartment and pay rent on it still, or do I move somewhere else, move all my stuff, come back? And these are all decisions that you've got to make for yourself, because, you got to weigh those options. I didn't leave here for a long time. I was gone for 3 months. So I was like, I'll just eat the cost of the apartment and, just turn everything off and not pay the electric on it. Right. So that's one of those things that I did. But besides the ROTC training, besides, all those lessons you have, you're going to have resources available to you from your base as well. The TMO, the Airman and Family Readiness Center, finance, all those things call them, ask questions. It never hurts, right? And everyone knows that a lieutenant has no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's going on still now, right? Like I'm still learning. It's a process of continuous learning, right? So if you approach with a sense of humility and say, hey, I'm coming to this base, I have no idea what to do. Can you help me figure this thing out? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And you'll have a sponsor as well as the commander support staff that'll help you kind of guide you in the right direction. Besides that, do you want to learn a little more about like my specific AFSC training for security forces?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. So for security forces, we are our tech school for both officers enlisted as at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, the bustling metropolis of endless stuff. It's just like Henrietta times like 50. And the training is done at several locations. They have Chapman Annex, which is right across the street, like literally from Joint Base San Antonio Lackland, which is the main BMT base. And then up on the north side of San Antonio is Camp Bullis, which is very much like Fort Drum, just endless woods, and then some buildings here and there. It's like 80,000 acres of just like open hills and valleys and stuff like that, and that's where we did a lot of our training as well. Training for security forces, what I went through is law enforcement focused, and then there's expeditionary skills, and then we also have nuclear training as well, but that's a little bit more specific if you go to a nuke base, so that wasn't as heavily harped on. You'll be trained on handcuffing techniques, making sure you do a proper search, how to do it safely, small unit tactics, bounding, ambushes, L-shaped ambushes. You will be trained on all the weaponry the Air Force has to offer. At that time, I was lucky enough to get behind a machine gun not more than once, or not just once, but several times, and that was very exciting. Belt-fed machine guns are my favorite. But besides that, the training, is very classroom focused for a little bit, and then you go out and do like field craft stuff. So they take you out into the woods, and we do land nav. So you think land nav isn't going to be important? It's important. And then one of the funny things that I thought was a full circle moment was when we do official guard mount, we do an open ranks inspection. So if there's anybody out there thinking I'm never going to use this again, and you want to go into security forces, guess again, because we used it like quite a few times. So open ranks has actually a practical use in active duty, at least for security forces. But we went through, I think the training days were around 70 or 80. I can't remember the specific number, but again, like I said, you go through classroom portions, you're tested on, career field knowledge, weapons knowledge, things like that. And then your hard skills, can you do a patrol? Can you make a certain formation? Can you, navigate without getting lost in the middle of the woods and not get eaten by a wild pig, all those fun things. And then at the end, you graduate and you are officially termed a defender, and you get the beret. I love the beret. It's quite nice, and I love wearing it because it's a unique identifier, and it's not something that a lot of Air Force people get to wear. Besides us, the only other people that wear berets are special warfare, so like SEER, PJ, TACP, all those things. And so it's a nice little cherry on top at the end. I earned this because I worked hard for it, and it's awesome. So tech school was difficult, and there was some things that were challenging. One of the most challenging things was for people that I've heard was they call it Red Man. It's baton training, right? So it's a less than lethal use of force technique where you are training on how to properly apply techniques of the baton to subdue an individual. And the cadre will dress up in a big suit that's red man, and you'll go into the ring with them for 2 to 3 minutes, and it's pretty fun. And you can't lose your focus. You can't go crazy and just start wailing on them, right? Because it's not how security forces works. But you have to navigate around while they're trying to punch you and hit you and all that fun stuff. And it's actually a lot of fun. Like, it was one of the most exciting and entertaining things that I've done, because it's just a lot of endorphins, and it's a lot of great work. And at the end, you're just really tired, but it felt good to get in there and kind of focus and stay with it. And I had a lot of fun with that one. Not getting tased though. Tasing was not fun. Wouldn't recommend that one.
So you mentioned, for example, Lieutenant Andre, if you went to a nuke base, you would be provided with additional nuke training. So does this mean
Yes.
that depending on your assignment and what base you're going to and what your mission is, additional training is given for your assignment?
Yeah, to some degree, right? So for specifically in our career field, nuke bases have their own way of doing things. And so they have their own little kind of mini training pipeline they put you through if you PCS into that base. But besides that, if let's say I was at McGuire, Joint Base McGuire, Dix Lakehurst, right? And I was coming to Goodfellow. Depending on the mission they fulfilled there and where I was, if I was doing more security or more law enforcement, I would have to kind of adjust on the fly as I'm PCSing into Goodfellow, or after I PCS into Goodfellow, and maybe dust off the cobwebs if I wasn't able to do any law enforcement at, Joint Base McGuire, Dix Lakehurst. And so specifically for the nuke fields, they will do their own training. But besides that, everything else is OJT. So if I didn't do security, at one base and then I moved to a new one, I did security, I dust the cobwebs off, make sure I learn the specific, ways they do it at that base while still adhering to the higher headquarters guidelines, and then boom, go off and do it. And that goes for, law enforcement, that goes for base specific functions that fall into both categories. So it depends on the mission that the base fulfills, and every base has its own flavor. You're never going to see the same thing twice because everybody does things differently. And that's one of the unique things about the career field is that you'll get a different flavor, even if it's the same function at different bases.
So with some of the different training plan where you go for different bases, how much of what you're doing in security forces is down to your decision compared to needs the Air Force as you go in. So how likely is it that if you want to work specifically with K9 units, how likely would it be that you have agency to get there?
So as an officer, we are in charge of the K9 units and we don't get to be a handler ourselves. However, that being said, being an officer allows us the privilege and the opportunity to go and, shadow airmen that are doing these things. And so it's an opportunity that you can take, at your own time and, on your own volition, whether it's, for on the job training and learning purposes or just for pure curiosity. You can go in and observe those. And K9 has their own specific rules, right? Because that's an important part of the career field. And there's a lot of rules surrounding K9, but that goes with anything, right? If I wanted to go in and shadow the combat arms guys for a day or two, I could do that. And that would be my decision because as an LT, you're supposed to be a sponge and you're supposed to soak up all this knowledge, right? And so being able to learn those things and understand not just what the job is, but the obstacles to that job will then help you be more informed to then, work for those airmen going forward. So for example, for K9, right, I couldn't necessarily go to be a dog handler, but I can still go and on my free time or when I'm, training and learning, go hang out with them for a day, a shift, a week, and learn what they're doing.
Understood. For any opportunities within security forces or anything that is security forces adjacent, are there any medical opportunities to go in and perform anything that is considered to be part of any type of medical career, or is that entirely different AFSCs that will either work with them or not really interact at all? I suppose the question is for anyone who's looking into like nursing majors or medical majors, but still would be interested in supporting SF.
So one of the awesome things that I think we as Air Force officers and members are allowed to do is we can discuss with other agencies getting certifications. For example, I'm working with the fire department on base to, we kind of like do a little give and take, right? They have a special team that we have created of security forces members and firefighters where we respond to an active shooter situation, right? And so we want everyone on that team to kind of know a little bit about what each person does. So the firefighters are learning basic weapons understanding and weapons knowledge. They're teaching us basic, some I think it's emergency medical response, which is one step below EMT certification. So the opportunities exist. When you get your AFSC, that's your job. However, it is not uncommon at all to have different certifications. Again, like the emergency medical response certification, right? You could be a licensed EMT as a defender. And I would highly recommend that because that is a fantastic way to just, be a really well-prepared first responder, because usually we beat firefighters and the medics there to the scene. So it's good to have those skills. But aside from that, right, I'm trying out for the SWAT team in 2.5 weeks, and I'm going to have a SWAT certification because I tried out for the SWAT team, right? And that'll follow me wherever I go. As long as I keep it current, that the medical certification, all those things will stay current. So it's entirely possible, whether you do it on your own time, like if you wanted to just get a certification for paramedic and just have that for yourself, that would work. But it's even better if you can have it done through the military, because one, they might pay for it. Two, it'll count toward your job. Like it'll be, you won't get in trouble for using those skills necessarily, right? Like, 'cause sometimes there's legal hurdles to jump through. But there's definitely the opportunities to have a little bit of like a bit of both worlds if you're in security forces. That being said, though, this is your primary AFSC, so you wouldn't be able to just go and do like medical stuff 95% of the time, because you are a cop first.
Understood. So you mentioned, a few things such as, standby inspections now being useful and being a sponge as a second lieutenant entering into the Air Force. Are there any other skills that you learned or you found helpful from your time at Det 538 that have transitioned well over to active duty? Anything that you think that, wow, I'm glad I learned that?
Yeah, so it can be as basic as the ranks, right? Like, and that kind of comes with, time as well, right? Like it may not be as, readily frequent, and, you may not see airmen a lot, like, as a cadet, right? Because you only have a certain amount of NCOs and people you interact with, but, knowing the ranks and being able to address people by the current rank, right? And then walking down the sidewalk and seeing somebody and saluting, right? That's a higher rank than you. That's important, right? Because if you miss a salute, doesn't look good. Customs and courtesies, right? Those are all, big things as well. Understanding how to, navigate those things with the correct, what's the word I'm looking for? Formality. Bullet background papers, MFRs, LORs, LOCs, all that ton and quill stuff. That's important as well. It's not great if you have to give out an LOC or an LOR or things like that, and I haven't had to do that. Knock on wood. My airmen are doing well, but those things do happen, right? My boss wrote a bullet background paper to try to have something changed, and he used the tongue and quill. He made sure that all the things were good, stuff like that. And then bullet writing, yeah, that's a big thing for sure. 100% keep track of that stuff and understand how that goes. And I specifically remember, I think it was Colonel Turner saying, when you're preparing to write your OPRs or when you're going through your time as an officer, write down stuff that you've done. Like, hey, I did X amount of volunteer hours. Hey, I was the project lead for this thing and it did X, Y, and Z, and, resulting in X amount of people helped, X amount, of millions of dollars taken care of, right? And those are going to be things you want to keep track of, so that when you come back to your OPR in like, whatever month it's due, you can write those out without having to think back like to previous 12 months. What else? Marching skills are important, but I haven't marched at a lot. I'd be honest if I said I did a lot of marching. There was marching at tech school, and there was marching a little bit here for ceremonies. But that being said, your drill and ceremony is important, right? If you don't have good drill and ceremony and you're trying to do like an about face for anything, and it looks like garbage, and your feet are like this far apart, they'll be like, that person didn't practice for DNC. So even though it's not used readily, right, having those skills is still important. What else? If you want to go into security forces, we'll teach you all the expeditionary skills. So those are a good foundation. And then on top of that, understanding how to navigate the hierarchical structure of the Air Force is something that I think is beneficial as well. And you get that when you become a POC a little bit, because as a GMC, you're kind of just, doing things, but then as a POC, you see the other side of how it is. And it kind of mirrors the officer enlisted relationship a lot, right? And that, I think, is where you can really kind of develop your leadership skills. And that's what I think is the most important one, is figuring out what kind of leader you are. And that's not something that you learn in ROTC, because you started there, right? And then you continuously go. And I personally believe that your leadership should be always developing, always adding new things, right? And starting in ROTC, you see those leaders that are there for you, and then you can, take what you like, leave what you don't, and then just go on and formulate your own leadership style. I think that's one of the most important things that you can do as a cadet going into active duty.
All right. From either through ROTC or through your training, your tech school, PCSing, what was the hardest obstacle that you've had to go through, either directly related to the Air Force and AFSC, or kind of ancillary, something that's surrounding this whole transition from cadet to full-fledged officer to now performing at your station?
It's a good one. I know for sure when I first got on station, well, aside from like the weather and what we call snowvid, that gigantic winter storm that happened, there was a time before I went to tech school that I wasn't quite sure what to do and how to act, right? I didn't kind of have my, I didn't understand how to be, it was kind of like that awkward stage of where you're like a little reserved and like you're very formal and all that things because you're still learning who people are. You're still learning, who you are. And so that was a little bit of a hurdle for me, kind of just figuring out where I fit into the whole puzzle. And going to tech school helped, right? Because then it kind of helps you develop your leadership skills more and you become more confident. But that feeling went away, the longer I was here, right? Like the second I got back to tech school, because I'd been on post a little bit prior, I knew who people were. I knew where to go to find answers. I knew, things that I could do, during the day, right? And that kind of helped me go forward. But besides that also, right, I also learned what it really means to kind of be an officer, right? Like, and that's one of the things that you don't really get until you're just kind of there. You can read about it, you can hear about it, you can see about it, but again, it's one of those things like once you're in the shoes, then you're like, okay, I see kind of how it is now. And that was kind of how my experience was as well. It took a little while to get used to people calling me sir, people calling me LT, people calling me, lieutenant, right? People standing up when I walk into the room, people, even a chief who's been in the Air Force for as long as I've been alive stands up and calls me sir. And I it feels weird for a little while, right? But that's the way it should be. And you shouldn't shy away from that, right? Don't be afraid of that, of the customs and courtesies, because you earned this commission, right? So that's how it should be. And that's one of those things that I kind of wasn't sure about, is the whole like hierarchical, like, I don't feel like I deserve that respect and all that fun stuff, but I am, per the Air Force and per the rank that I wear on my chest, am due that respect. So that was one of those things that I learned as well. And then the whole PCS aspect, that was just kind of like, we're going to make a decision, we're going to go with it and see what happens. Because, I don't know about all of everyone's, current position in life, but this was the first time that I left home for anything, big. I never really traveled this much. I've never picked up my life and plopped it somewhere else. So doing all that was a very big change and a very big adjustment for sure. And there was a lot of uncertainty, but also a lot of excitement. And it was very, very welcoming to kind of just have a new horizon to look forth to. So the PCS was a lot of work, a lot of, like thinking, deciding, paying, because you got to pay for it all. And it was a little bit nerve wracking. And, again, you're finding your own way. So that was probably one of the parts that was a little bit difficult, but not horrible, because you're making your own path, which is empowering, but also terrifying, right? But it's good. It's good.
So as we close out, sir, do you have any final words of wisdom on being in security forces and ROTC, topics that you want to let cadets or prospective cadets know as they embark upon this journey and start to move towards where you're going?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm always happy to be a resource if anybody's got any questions going down the line. Y'all can contact me however. I've got email, and I'm still on Slack. I still get the messages when the core announcements go out, so I'm still there lurking in the background. And that's, we'll start with that. But messages on a broad scale, we'll say, don't hold back. Use all of your time in ROTC. Use all those opportunities that everyone gives you to really hone your skills and develop who you are, because the more you put in, the more you'll get out. And not only that, but I encourage everyone, whether it is security forces or not, to find their dream job, right? because for me, I got lucky. I love this career field. I love it. Everything that I wanted is exactly what security forces is. And I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity to not only serve, in the armed forces, but to be in the career field that I love. So I would tell you to find your dream and pursue it relentlessly, and don't settle for anything else. That's a pretty big thing for, to be able to have your goals for you and then achieve them. That'll set you up for success for the rest. Besides that, though, pay attention to those financial briefings. Listen in aerospace classes. PT is important. Don't let anybody tell you it's not, even though they're changing the PT test. Keep PTing on your own and have fun with it. Enjoy it, because this is going to be one of the awesomest things you're going to do in your life if you commission, if you go into your dream job and all those fun things, right? And just enjoy the heck out of it, because you're doing something that not a lot of people do, and it's fun.
Well, I think that's all the questions we got for today. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Andre, sir, for your time and sharing a little bit into your story.
Still, it's very, very motivating and awesome to be able to, reach back into the debt and provide these answers and question, help provide guidance if that's what people are looking for. And I'm very happy to be able to do so. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. And I'm always happy to do, second, third, fourth follow-ups, whatever you all want. I'm here for it. So thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, sir. And everyone from Detachment 538 sends their well regards and hopes that the career and the golf game stay strong.
Yeah, I gotta hit the links again. My clubs are looking a little dusty.